is pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
I have to return some videotapes. 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 I have to return some
Hey everybody, welcome back to Strange Glow Video. My name is Justin. With me, as always, is my esteemed colleague, co-host extraordinaire, Alec. How are you doing?
I am doing all right. How about you?
It's October 1st, so in some regards I'm really good, and in some regards I'm terrible. But just depends on the day, the hour, the minute, sometimes the breath. I see you're all dolled up for doing some awesome photos that you posted earlier on social media.
Yeah, I did some spooky photos. You can see them if you're interested on my Instagram at Ectoviolence. But yeah, it's October 1st, so we went down to a graveyard and took some photos. I got more to post tomorrow, so.
Well, that's how you start off October. Yeah, I picked up this cheap little skull candy pail at the Dollar General today after work. Went there to grab some chips for some chili Frito pie that we had for dinner tonight, and saw that, and I was like, I'm going to snag that. And then, I added some paint to it, make it look a little bit better, a little light underneath it. It's kind of fun.
Sick.
Just the Halloween season finally being here. It was a nice, crisp autumn day, right? We're kind of right on the edge there of actual fall.
Yeah.
But the high today was like 70, cool little breeze, just absolutely perfect fall weather for just really taking it in, enjoying the transition of the season here. I'm feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah, no, it's pretty nice so far. I enjoying the new place. Been recording a lot of new videos and doing a lot of cool new things. Got to see that Your Monster movie in advance. I got an advanced screening of that. Just put out my TikTok review of that today, which was my obligation. And then I was like, all right, I'm also going to do a YouTube review because that's the main thing. So
yeah. When does that release?
October 25th.
Okay, so it's got a little time.
Yeah.
And then I think next week we're planning on reviewing Saturday Night. At least that's the game plan as of now. So
yeah,
that looks pretty intriguing. I'm pretty excited about it. Obviously I love Saturday Night Live. I've watched the first episode a handful of times. So to hear the story kind of leading up into that first episode, it's pretty interesting.
All right. Yeah, I think we're pretty much some of the ideal audience for a movie like this. That's not because we're young. We still go to movies, first of all. And we are very familiar with not only Saturday Night Live, but the cast and even some of the history behind this stuff already. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, for me, when I originally sought out this episode, when I was really in my George Carlin phase, so, in my late teens, early 20s, I was playing in a band. And, when we play the occasional show out of town, when you're in a band and you're seeing bands play every night, you can only listen to so much fucking music in the car ride. So we got into a lot of comedy CDs, right? Comedy CDs were all the rage. So we listened to a lot of George Carlin. And then I heard that George Carlin he was the host of season 1, episode 1 of SNL. And I was like, oh, well, shit.
Yeah.
So I went and tracked that down at the time. And I think that was when they'd done some of those earlier episodes on DVD. And they'd started that early on. I think, hell, even in high school, I got a best of Dan Aykroyd on SNL or something like that, maybe for a gift. No, maybe it wasn't Dan Aykroyd. Maybe it was Mike Myers.
Yeah, you had the Mike Myers.
Yeah,
that's I remember.
Yeah. So, I mean, SNL, I don't tune in as often as I'd like to. But I will say SNL's done a very good job of keeping up with current culture as far as making the show and content available online, like the next day, like with the top skits, the funniest bits, making it short form content, easy to consume, just to see the highlights.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that they've kind of kept up with that, but
I have a couple SNL tapes somewhere. I have the best of Chris Farley and it's sealed. And then I have just a couple, a best of season 1 and best of season 2, I think. And then I have season 1 on DVD because when they started re-releasing the entire seasons, they didn't go through, I don't think, and do them all, but they started doing them really nice box sets for a while, and I have season 1, I think. At least I know I have that one, but I don't know if I have any other ones. But that's when I started watching it, so I'm very familiar, especially with this first episode, because I went back and rewatched it a bunch as a kid too. And by kid, I mean like I was 17 probably when I bought this box set, and I was like, I was always into SNL, and I knew that I was like, all right, cool, this is fucking Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd, and I knew that Bill Murray was coming next season. I was like, all right, I'm stoked for this.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching SNL as a kid, with our parents, and just occasionally being up late enough for it, and seeing certain skits. So I remember seeing the bees and things like that. And I honestly have no idea if some of those were reruns based off some of the character skits and things like that, were just being played or syndicated. I'd almost need to research that, but there's memories of watching that and just kind of vaguely having that in the back of my head in my youth.
At one point, I downloaded every episode of SNL, and I went through and watched.
Oof.
What I did was, though, I would look up the cast and just watch episodes based on who was the cast and who was the guest host.
Okay.
So I watched like all of the best episodes, at least what I thought was the best episodes.
Yeah.
Based on musical performances and stuff too, because there's so many crazy ones. You're like, oh shit, they were on SNL randomly and like this year. And
yeah, I think to me that's another thing that's so amazing about SNL is they always had a good variety of musical artists on there, and late night talk shows always been pretty good about having variety of music on there. But
especially Conan.
I was going to say, I felt like Conan always had some stuff. And if something got bigger than like a Conan audience, you'd maybe see it on Leno or you might see it on SNL. But I feel like Conan was very arms wide open to some up and coming artists or not your typical mainstream artists being on this show.
For sure.
So I'm excited for that movie. But we also have Terrifier 3 coming out here soon. So we're trying to get everything ready to get prepped for that. So tonight we're talking Terrifier 2016.
If I had known in advance that we were going to have to cram some of these weeks, I probably would have tried to cover Terrifier 2 this week as well, but I didn't have time to watch it or anything. So
yeah, neither did I, and that's okay. So, right, I think Terrifier has become very much like, and this isn't to compare it to any other movie franchise series, but this is a pretty big independent series right now, right? And it's just grown. And so I would almost say this is almost like that Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th phenomenon right now, as far as a mainstream movie goes. Obviously, it has much more humble beginnings than that. So,
yeah.
But I think we're in a pretty interesting time for horror, right? There's been a lot of good horror movies this year. We've seen plenty of those, reviewed plenty of those, and there's a lot of variety to it, which is really what I've enjoyed.
It's really a girls' year of horror, too.
Yeah.
Fucking Maxine,
Mm-hmm.
The Substance, Your Monster, Lisa Frankenstein. I don't know if you saw that one, but I do recommend seeing it if you haven't.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that. I've been meaning to watch that. I just haven't gotten around to it. My problem is like, I don't want to turn that on when I'm kind of just winding down and not really super paying attention. Like that's the type of movie I want to watch and pay close attention to. So I need to do that like when I don't have anything else going on. So I haven't watched that yet because of that reason. There's times where if I'm only halfway interested in something, like if I don't pay a full attention to it, I don't really care. So I'll throw it on, and if it catches my attention, I'll stop what I'm doing and watch. But
Yeah.
So Art the Clown, right? Art the Clown's the main antagonist of the Terrifier series. And his beginnings go back to the Ninth Circle and a Terrifier, which both of those were short films, later included in the anthology film All Hallows Eve, which that came out in 2013. So I think a lot of people have gone back and watched this after the first Terrifier movie came out. People really sought that out. But the big difference there was that the actor portraying Art the Clown changed, right? So David Howard Thornton's currently the actor portraying him, and Mike Gianelli, or Gianelli is probably how you say that. That sounds Italian. Is he retired from acting? So he did the two short films there, and don't know what his story is. I haven't really looked up to see too much about him, but he doesn't have a Wikipedia page. So the fact that this started as like true indie horror, like short film indie horror too, to me is awesome. It's great
Mhm.
to see some of this stuff grow, and even just reading about these movies, right? When Damien Leone created this, you know, he was really just doing almost practical effects studies for some of the things he could do to see if he could get away with it and make it look good.
You can tell.
Yeah.
Just Art the Clown makeup in Terrifier alone is an
Hmm.
interesting work of, practical
Yeah.
effects. And then you have obviously the most iconic kill. If we're just going to talk about the effects and kills real quick here, we may as well.
We can.
The sawing in half, which is just very hard to watch because it also feels like there's an element of sexual violence because she's so naked, and it's like,
It's
you know,
very uncomfortable to watch that, right? And it's to your point. I think that that violence there, that sexual violence, really adds to that tension. That even though Art doesn't seem to be interested in that in this movie in a certain way,
right, right,
but it's just the way that's presented on screen and like shown. It's very makes your skin crawl, right?
for sure.
And that's effective horror, right? You know, not everyone just wants jump scares or things like that. I mean, for some people, like that form of body horror is really fucking traumatic,
Well, this was
really
right.
terrifying.
This was
So
definitely right on the line of like, okay, that's too much.
yeah, absolutely. And
It's on the line.
you can tell they really filmed everything through there and the editing process to get it right. And I wouldn't even say it's right necessarily, but to get it where it was final, the final take of this, the final edit was interesting. Now, I will say it was very effective because, like I said, my skin was crawling. I was really grossed out by that. I felt uncomfortable watching it, which that's the whole fucking point of that scene, right?
It
It's to
reminds
make,
me of the scene in Seven where the guy has to he makes the guy wear like a strap on that's like a basically just a blade and fuck this woman.
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't show it, but like, tells you about it, and that's just enough right there. So
The implication there is really fucking terrifying. And this, like, actually shows you a fair amount of it. Like, when you see him show that saw, you know what's going to happen. And then it's just fucking gory and bloody. Now, I will say some of the further away shots I felt like were less intense, but I mean, it looked pretty convincing, right? There's a fair amount of guts, tons of blood there, and in ways that, you know, we just talked the substance last week, right? And you talk about some of the satire and some of that body horror was way over the top. This is complete opposite of that, right? Where this is not satire, it's really a study in practical effects, and it's fucking disturbing. Like,
yep.
for the reason I used to not be a huge fan of the Saw series, right? I, I got out of horror for a little bit just because I wasn't watching a ton of it, right? You know, and then I remember seeing Saw 3 in theaters and like being kind of grossed out and creeped out by the body horror in that and really feeling uncomfortable with it. And you have to get desensitized to it to watch some of that stuff to like to get to the point where you can like stomach it. And then, um, as fucked up as that is to say, right? You have to desensitize yourself to be able to watch some of this shit. You just have to get through it, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I watched all the Saw films last year, and I remember going through and I'm like, okay, but on a large screen, I feel like these movies are much more traumatic. Like, right, had I seen Terrifier on the big screen, it probably really been a lot worse for me to see it on the big screen to kind of see some of those sequences because seeing it on the TV from across the room, uncomfortable, but seeing that on a big screen with the sound and the full theater experience, you know, I'm very curious what Terrifier 3 is going to do.
Well, I know for a fact that he kills a child in this movie, so
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So, uh, and I will tell you, man, like before I had kids, like that shit never bothered me. And I'm not going to say not do it in a movie, right? It's fucking movies, right? We review movies. Um, but it fucks with your head a little bit differently as a parent compared to like when you don't have kids, right?
yeah.
And I think you would relate to that. Like I have dogs, you have dogs, cats. So like when you see like certain shit happen to animals in movies, if you have a dog or whatever, like you can relate to that a little bit more. It's a little more upsetting to watch, so
Mhm.
makes it a little bit more real. So I think that's kind of a way that almost everyone's going to be able to be grossed out or upset by some of that shit. So,
Yeah.
but what did you think of Terrifier? Like, if we want to kind of break it down, right?
All right. Well, so it's an hour and a half long versus Terrifier 2, which is the one that I saw first.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no debating it. Terrifier 2 is wildly better. But for a movie, a slasher movie with a $35,000 budget, this is insane. It's insanely good for that budget. Like there's plenty of scenes with nothing happening in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But go watch any old slasher movie. There's lots of that.
I mean, yeah, if you go look at the first Halloween, like there is a good 30 minutes of that film of really just like fucking down, slow motion, slow moving parts, because that's what builds the suspense.
But
Right?
it works better in Halloween, I would say.
Yeah.
But I also think like Nightmare on Elm Street, it works extremely well just because the characters work well. So there might be there's not a lot of downtime in Nightmare on Elm Street, let's be honest. But
Mm-mm.
the downtime that there is works too. So it can be done. It's just that Damien Leone definitely did not prioritize that for the first Terrifier movie, and he's openly admitted that and talked about it.
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing about this movie to me is, right, we have these two characters we start off with, really, aside from the little TV introduction, right? Which is an interesting edit piece because eventually you figure out that the story being told at the very beginning kind of flashes, is flashing back on the story from there. You don't know if this is the same night or what it is, right? Um, which is an
Well,
interest.
yeah, the beginning of the movie is talking about the events of the movie.
Yes. And you're not really sure if that's the case or not.
Well,
So,
I think you are though, because the way the woman is, that's her. I mean,
yeah.
that's what's her face's little sister. One of the girl who watches her friend being sawed in half. Her little sister is the one whose face is all fucked up, and is telling the story because she showed up at the end looking for her sister.
Yeah. So that character's name is Victoria. And so
Yeah,
her
that's right.
sister and friend are Tara and Dawn. I will say, to me, this felt independent and small in scale because some of the character acting, and I'm not going to like say they were terrible, but you could tell it just wasn't like a big budget production type of a thing there with some of the dialogue, some of the performances. Now, Art the Clown, like that really fucking carries this movie, and that's what makes it interesting. But the human characters fall a little flat in this. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it makes this movie feel longer than it really is.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not that I dislike any of those performances, but it just feels like in certain scenes, the dialogue feels really forced between Tara and Dawn for some of this, especially in the beginning. And like the line delivery just kind of feels, I would just say forced as opposed to natural, right? It doesn't feel like two friends talking. I wish they would have ad libbed just the basic concepts of the script there to kind of make that work a little bit better, but neither here nor there, right? It's indie horror, and the fucking visuals are spectacular, especially for the budget when you look at it, right? What they did for the money.
That's what I'm saying. Like the setting isn't great, but for a slasher, it works, and you can tell it's a sign of the budget too. Like it's just rundown ruins where this is happening of like crappy
Yeah.
buildings. Like, yeah, I see that.
And the supporting cast is pretty interesting in here. We've got the cat lady that's kind of in the movie throughout here. And I don't know what did you think of that character? I kind of want to know your thoughts before I say much.
Home Alone 2.
Yeah. You got pigeon lady vibes.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I hear your cats fighting.
Yeah. Yoshi's harassing Darwin right now.
Yeah. So the cat lady to me felt a little over the top in a way that was almost right. I haven't seen these movies a ton, right? And so just rewatching this, I'm giving my honest opinion here. Like, if you love this movie, I'm not trying to piss you off, but I just thought the cat lady was over the top and almost kind of an insult to someone with fucking real mental health issues. But that's just kind of how that character was written. So it's neither here nor there. Something I noticed and was bothered by throughout the movie. I was like, does this character even really need to be here?
Oh shit.
I don't know. I didn't feel like she brought much to the story. She was another kill. They're able to mutilate her and cut her breasts off so Art could nurse the baby doll and shit. But
Okay, but that Art wearing her skin around was one of the best visuals of the movie. Absolutely terrifying and bizarre and strange and absolutely everything I want out of these movies.
Yes, but the character that they did that from had too much screen time. I didn't really care about her, and it felt dumb to me. Now, they could have just had him fucking kill a random person without any backstory or anything like that, and then do that, and that'd be perfectly fine. Now, the baby doll choice, I get, because at this point, your first movie, you probably don't want to have like that be a real mom with a baby that he kills and then is trying to like nurse and shit. Right? That would have been pretty fucking extreme. So I feel like that was a safe bet to go with a person with the baby doll that's mentally ill.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I don't know. Cat Lady worked for me. I did like the sawing of the head off. That was a good effect.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, and then the head getting kicked around and stuff, getting used to smash through glass. That stuff's fun.
Yeah. No, the practical effects in this all fucking look great, right? There's not anything in there that looks like, oh, it's so fucking terrible, right? You know, sometimes, especially with some 80s films, you're looking at things where it's practical, but you know, even like the latex and the molds and shit that they were able to do back then, just the technology for practical effects has improved so much that a lot of this shit felt like you're really watching someone get hacked up.
Yeah, no. Practical effects are great these days. It's a bummer
Yeah.
they're not used more because of how good we are at making them look actually real now.
Yeah, you're
Like,
able to make like the outer layer of skin transparent, like, and so it doesn't feel like older prop models because, you know, like there's no, I mean, your brain can just tell the difference in this. And now they've gotten to the point where it's very close, feels pretty authentic.
yeah.
So it's much more fucking terrifying, especially if you don't like body horror. Like
Uh,
this series is all about that body horror, just destroying it and making you uncomfortable.
you said the word. You said terrifying. It's
I
terrifying.
know. Uh huh.
Ah!
See, I said it. It's a buzzword. It's
You said the
trending.
secret word.
The secret word. How's Pee Wee say that?
I said the secret word.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed the movie though. I think they probably could have edited maybe 15 minutes out of this, streamline it a little bit.
It's only about an hour and a half.
Yeah. But I feel like a good hour and 15 would have been really good just as far as some of the pacing things that I saw in it. But again, it's the first in the feature, right? This launched a whole series of additional movies. We're on the third one now. And this is unusual in a horror series to some degree. Like, you know, we see the budgets get better other times, but when you think of a movie like Nightmare on Elm Street, right? When you think of a Wes Craven movie and you think about what they did there, like those movies felt like they went down in budget to some degree from the first. And this feels like this is going up in budget and the scope and the scale. Not that the scope and scale didn't get bigger in some of the Nightmare films, but I feel like the other Terrifier movies are getting better. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Now, obviously, I haven't seen 3 yet, but that's kind of where my mind's going towards it. Is this series actually getting better instead of getting more contrived?
I think it's budgets. That's the reason. You
Yeah,
know, because the
and that's
director clearly knows what he's doing with us, and
mhm.
has a vision. The acting is good now. Like, you just gotta. I'm interested to see where this third one's gonna go.
Seems to have at least from the photos and stuff. I haven't really religiously watched the trailers, but the photos imply that there's like a Christmas element to it. So to have another movie to throw on during the Christmas season, it's kind of nice, you know. Like after Halloween, I'm not done with horror movies.
Well, that's the thing is Terrifier 1 has that Halloween element, obviously,
Huh?
which
Yeah.
all horror does inherently anyway, but
Yes.
specifically it's built in. That makes it cooler. So now it's like, oh, then you can watch Terrifier 2 in like November. By December, you're rolling around for Christmas.
Yeah.
Watch Terrifier 3.
Yeah. You get one a month there just to kind of treat yourself, you know.
Treat yourself to some gore.
Yeah. And you know, start out with All Hallows Eve in September. Really, you know, just kind of go through the fall season that way, you know, end of the summer, end of the winter, you know. I
Yeah.
dig it. Uh
I like the music in this. It wasn't like super synthy like the second one, but it's more reminiscent of a Grindhouse movie, to be honest. So I like that. It has an interesting vibe to it for sure. Um, I don't have too much more to say on it other than that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about like some of the other characters. I did not mind the pest control guy, which you know, you almost want to refer to him as the janitor just based off his uniform and the fact that he's got like open access to the building. He's just the pest control guy.
Oh, was that Mike?
Yeah. Mike the Exterminator. And so I did, you know, I kind of liked his character, right? The fact that there's this kind of bumbling guy going on around here and has no idea what's going on, you know, and he like kind of looks around and there's some good scenes for that, you know, kind of
Yeah.
makes for some interesting shots. So I didn't mind him as much. The interesting piece about this movie is, you know, at the end where they show, you said that's Victoria that survives.
Mm-hmm.
So you see Victoria go and like mutilate the newscaster after she hears her talking shit, right? And that's at the very beginning. So it almost opens up the option to expand this franchise beyond Art the Clown with a
Mm-hmm.
character like that going on a killing spree of her own.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that that was there, and that's kind of how that movie got set up. Like I said, you know, for the uninitiated, if you haven't seen this, well, too late for spoiler alert, but you know, this one's the oldest, so you should have seen it by now. You've got Terrifier 2 on VHS. This one had a VHS release back in 2019, which I do find fascinating because I feel like that is horror is like the VHS genre and still translates well to VHS, still looks good on VHS, and is still very fun on VHS.
You should go, if you're interested, by the way, on seeing what this movie looks like on VHS, go to my YouTube channel. I did a video on just talking about the VHS release and what it looks like and everything, what's included on it. And yeah, it looks great. Like I was captivated watching it on VHS. It was just the vibes were immaculate. Let me just say that.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm curious to see, you know, because I've only got a small TV VCR combo, but you know, obviously, if I had more room, I'd consider having a larger tube TV just for VHS purposes. And so I would be curious to see how this translates, but I'll have to check that out over on your channel at Ectoviolence, you know, so that'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely. I'm interested to see what Terrifier 3 is going to bring us. So as you said, the Christmas thing is very interesting to me. I like Christmas horror a lot. Silent Night, Deadly Night, not the whole film series, but the first one is a decent Christmas slasher. The second one is hilariously bad and fun to watch. The rest of them are a little forgettable.
If you're going for a marathon though, and you watch them all back to back, they go a lot better, right? If you kind of space them out over like one a week or something like that, it's not even as fun. You really have to marathon them back to back in the room for it to be worth your while.
They started being great, and then they kind of just eventually were unrelated entirely. So
yeah.
And then there's Black Christmas and Black Xmas, which I really like both of those. I like Jack Frost and Jack Frost 2. The horror ones, obviously.
Yeah.
And we have Nosferatu to look forward to this December, which is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. But yeah, I'm excited for Terrifier 3 just to see, you know, what that's like. You know, adding another horror movie into the holiday season, I think is always good to mix it up, right? You know, there's tons of great Halloween movies that take place on Halloween or are centered around Halloween. There's plenty that don't. But you know, to get that horror genre just year round, you know, like I'm kind of ready for some like horror genre Labor Day, 4th of July, Memorial Day type shit. But then you think about it and you're like, oh, that's all fucking just camp horror movies. So that category is fucking covered. You know what I mean? Like you could easily throw any of those kind of camping sequences into any of those. Oh, here's the 4th of July scene and do that. So
yeah, there's ways you could do like a 4th of July themed movie though. Like
I've got a real fucking good idea for one.
Somebody getting killed with a bunch of fireworks, like repeatedly stuffing fireworks in people's mouths and letting that shit explode.
Yeah, I've got an idea for a deranged one called Uncle Sam. So
that's probably been done, hasn't it?
I don't know. I feel like it could have been, but if it has, I need to see it. But yeah, that would just
Uncle
be a
Sam horror movie. Yeah, 1996. Okay. So that might actually be good. It's a black comedy slasher starring
Okay.
Isaac Hayes.
What? Damn. Well, we just got educated here, so we're gonna have to go check that out.
I got Robert Forster's in it too.
Fuck. I guess what we're covering next 4th of July, or maybe sooner, depending on how good it is.
And PJ Souls.
That's intense.
Yeah. And Bob. Oh, okay. I thought Bob Hoskins was in it. It's Bo Hopkins. I was like,
Oh.
holy shit. What the fuck is going on?
That's classic.
PJ Souls, though, she's in Halloween and Stripes, right? Is she in
Mhm.
Halloween? Yeah, Halloween. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And Carrie.
So to circle back, how did you feel about Art blowing his fucking brains out?
It's interesting. I found it's very interesting that Art uses guns to begin with.
Yeah, that's what I
Isn't it?
thought too. Yeah, to me, like that's such a. I'm like, wait, is this guy a cop or is he a killer clown? It's kind of interchangeable in this movie, but
Roasted.
yeah, hey, I'm not the one out there fucking shooting people.
All right.
So, yeah, like the fact that he's going around shooting people is interesting because Art the Clown, is like there's like supernatural elements to Art the Clown, and then there's shit like this where this asshole just wants to fucking use a handgun, and it's interesting because of that. There's like a weird dynamic of like, okay, we're bordering on the supernatural type shit here, but could you imagine if Freddy Krueger used a fucking handgun instead of the glove? Like, would that still be scary? Same concept, but instead of the glove, he has a gun. I just feel like
gun fingers.
Yeah. Okay.
Bang, 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 bang. Finger bang. Bang, bang, bang.
Oh yeah. Finger bang, Freddy's nemesis.
Or at least I'm surprised he hasn't had a moment where he's in someone's dream and has finger guns and he's like, I'm gonna finger bang you. Ha 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 ha, bitch.
I bet if we ever saw if we ever ran into him at a con, we could probably get him to make a line about that or something. I wish he would do another Freddy movie though before he's out the door.
Yeah.
Good old Mr. Robert Englund. I mean, if anything, like, could you imagine a fucking like anime styled animated movie of Freddy with him doing the voice? That could be pretty fucking trippy.
And by trippy, you mean don't make that, please. Don't make that.
Yeah.
Don't make that, please.
Yeah, no, it just wouldn't be gory enough. You'd have to do that realistic or something else.
Unless it was like claymation, I'd be down for that. The entire claymation Freddy movie.
Fuck. Now you're talking, man.
That could be gory as fuck and be comedic still.
Yeah, I mean, if you look how fucking gory and obnoxious Celebrity Deathmatch was back in the day, combined with the looks and upscale quality of the California Raisins.
Well, no, I was thinking more like in Dream Warriors when he's claymation as a puppet. You kind of have that vibe.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's almost like the Tim Burton-y style of really high-end claymation.
Stop motion,
shit.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's intriguing because Robert Englund could still do the voice pretty easily for that. Yeah, okay, now we're talking here. I don't know, but yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of Art using the gun. Him killing himself kind of seemed like a cheap way out of that movie, but
yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. It's just one of those horror characters that's people are intrigued by it. It's obviously, I mean, name a young person that doesn't know who Art the Clown is, right? I feel like that's pretty well known.
What's more interesting, ending the movie with him blowing his brains out, going to the coroners, killing the coroner, and then waking up and like the next movie starting with him still there and fucking shit up, or him just getting arrested at the end of this movie, and then at the beginning of the next one, killing everyone at the police station, Terminator style.
Well, we know he loves guns, so either one of those would actually work pretty well, but yeah.
Especially if he put on sunglasses while he did it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to fucking make it a farce of Terminator 2, or actually the first Terminator at the police station, yeah, that would work. But yeah, no, I think that's pretty interesting there, but, I don't think he ever had an intention of making a sequel when he made that, right? It was...
Speaking of Terminator, did you hear that Linda Hamilton's cast in the next season of Stranger Things?
I did hear that. So
Interesting.
very curious about how that's going to roll out when it's all said and done.
Mm-hmm.
Is Terrifier one of the most successful, and I don't want to say most successful from a financial standpoint, but is it one of the most well-known Indiegogo campaigns ever? I mean, because that's how this movie was funded originally.
Possibly, but it did not. The campaign was to reach it didn't reach the campaign though. I know that.
Yeah.
No, because Terrifier 2 is much more successful, right? And that was also funded on Indiegogo.
Oh, it was? Okay, I didn't
Yeah,
realize
with
the
a
sequel was.
campaign of $50,000 goal. The campaign was a massive success, reaching over 430% of the initial goal with a total donation of $250,000.
Okay. So quite the significant budget increase, but still like next to nothing compared to what it costs to make a movie, really, when you think about it.
The budget for Terrifier 3 is $2 million, which is still like not a big budget, but like when you think about what the guy did with $250,000 in Terrifier 2, like sure, that'll work.
Well, if you're frugal, if you know how to scout locations right and not have to build or spend an insane amount of money on sets, yeah, there's some very good ways. Look at all the independent filmmakers around the United States. There's ways to do it successfully. So that is pretty cool about this series that none of them have blown up and to astronomical budgets, right? Right. These are pretty easy movies to make their money back and be successful with. So
Well, then there's also some of the interesting cast that's going to be in Terrifier 3. Let me see. Daniel Roebuck, who's in River's Edge, which I really like, and he's in the first Final Destination.
okay.
And then Tom Savini, Jason Patrick, Clint Howard.
Getting some of the usual suspects out there. Clint Howard, he's
Yeah.
he's always been a man of the independent horror genre, right? And I appreciate that about him. Like he's comfortable just doing these movies and like just knowing that that's where he falls into his best work.
Right, like Ice Cream Man, is that the one is that what it's called?
I think so. But yeah, I'm curious who Jason Patrick plays in this, right?
Yeah, it doesn't say who he plays. Neither with
Yeah.
Tom Savini, so that's good. Be a surprise.
I like how Santa Claus is confirmed in the credits here, but that could be
That's
a
what I'm
mall
saying.
Santa. So
It's Daniel Roebuck, so
yeah. Yeah, there's going to be some very interesting reactions to this, but I think the first one's a pretty solid entry to a franchise like this, especially after coming off some independent short films. It's not like my favorite film, but it's rewatchable. I would say that, right? I definitely think Terrifier 2 is a lot better, and then Terrifier 3 is to be determined, but all things considered, it looks like it's got a lot going for it already. So
yep, it's going to be interesting.
yep. All right. Well, I don't think we have anything else to really say about it. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. I think that's kind of essential viewing for modern horror fans at this point.
Yeah.
Sure.